Hello, this is Family Like the Ghost. This is Jen Eagle.
Yes, this is me.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to give a brief overview. I'm Family Like the Ghost. I interview indie artists from around the world. So we're going to be talking to Danish electro pop singer and model Jen Eagle. So
Yeah.
I've got your Spotify up, and I'm just going to give a little biography from your Spotify before we talk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Danish electro pop singer Jen Eagle released her first Danish EP, Fly, Fly V Med Mig, Fly With Me, in May 2017. The well-established rapper in the Danish music industry, Al Agami, is featured on the song Ka Du Si Mig, Do You See Me? Jen recently visited Hollywood, where she worked in the studio with world-class music engineer and producer Cole Nystrom. She is, among others, cooperating with DJ, producer, and songwriter Freddie Moops. Jen Eagle released her debut single, My Child, in 2014, and is working her way up as an indie artist. You also sent us some new music that you have out here, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I see I have the song My Child, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. It's like Sta Her, and then
Yeah.
her date Lied. If I
Yeah.
yeah,
It's Danish.
Danish,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's harder for me to figure out. But I do have those, so you could actually, correct me if I got those wrong.
But it's as good as it can be.
Okay.
Yeah. But it means stand here,
Oh,
like stand still
okay,
with me. Yeah, that's what the song is about.
that's cool.
But I make songs in English as well. So.
Yeah, I have your Spotify up, and so what I can do, since I'm in the U.S., we can include your Spotify link to your whole profile on this podcast when we publish it. So we'll include your whole profile, which will have all your current Spotify songs, and then we can also include the link you gave me with your other website.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
So we're going to go through the questions. So I think I sent them to you. So hopefully you have them. So question number one was, when did you first get into music and at what age?
Yeah, I think as every other artist, I started singing and writing songs when I was a small child. I made my first song where it's not just when I was about 12 years old. Um, but then I moved to a a bigger city here in Denmark, Copenhagen. Yeah, I'm from the countryside.
Okay.
I came here to be a musician, but when I came here, it was the modeling who took over. So that was what I've been doing for years. So the music was just on the side, but I was still going to studios, and I had my own home recording studio as well. So for years there was most focus on the modeling, and the music was more on the side until 4 years ago, where I went all in music.
So what age did you start modeling? Was it around the same age that you were doing?
When I was 16.
16? And that kind of that took over because you were able to be successful at that, so it became the
Yeah. So, but the plan was to just jump right to the music. But I was thinking it's better in that way, being a model first and then a musician. The other way around is not easy.
Well, yeah, because then you can gain an audience, you gain confidence, you learn how to have a stage presence, which in music, it's very important to have a stage presence. You learn about stagecraft because you know about makeup, you know about how to present yourself. So a lot of those are skills that some musicians don't have that, and they have to get trained.
That's
have
true.
what you already have. So that's a good thing.
But somehow I always felt like it was good to have both. Also for the modeling part, I felt sometimes that I actually got booked because I had something else, because
Mhm.
many models look the same. But when I was there, we were playing my music and, oh, she sings.
Oh, it gave you,
So it was,
yeah,
they found it interesting somehow.
yeah, but you gave a
So
more interesting story,
yeah,
because you had
yeah,
more to offer than just your image.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
when we get into your music, like what
Yeah.
as a musician, are you primarily a vocalist? You said you have a studio, so do you play instruments, and what instruments do you play?
I play piano, um, and I sing. I also started producing my own music 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
So I record on the piano, and I record the drums on the piano as well, and the bass and so on.
Okay.
And I build it up from scratch, and put sounds into it. And then I built my own vocal box in my home. So it works perfect. And some of the songs on Spotify I recorded by myself here in the vocal box.
Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a musician myself. I'm a synthesizer player, so
Okay.
I'm a keyboardist, and
Yeah.
so I'm familiar with using like pianos, or some
Yeah.
things that are like
Yeah.
pianos. I use like Moogs and Rolands and Prophets. I'm an old school kind of analog
Mm-hmm.
synthesizer player. I play analog and digital, but what's great about keyboards is the modern workstations or MIDI keyboards, and you plug them into computers, or
Yeah.
DAWs. Like, I'm going to ask you about DAWs, but since you have a studio,
Mm-hmm.
it just allows you to, as one person, produce an entire album, which is what I do. And so I have a lot of respect for people who go and sit down and take their vision, and as like a
Mm-hmm.
singer-songwriter, you take your
Yeah.
vision and you're able to like do it all yourself. And so it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
that's where you're coming from, and that's very interesting. I love
Yeah.
talking to musicians that have that kind of capability.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you realize that you were a musician but you wanted to write your own music? Because there's a difference. There's some musicians that never write their own music. They play
Yeah, that's
classical
true. That's
music, they
true.
play other music, they never write their own.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you feel that you could write your own?
But the thing is, it's not something I chose to do. Like, I want to write my own songs. I just do that. I've always been doing that. Also, when I was a child, also when I didn't know the English language, I was trying to sound English somehow, yo, something like that. So,
Yeah.
so it's just my feelings. I always had the feeling it needs to come out somehow, and I don't get that feeling of singing someone's song either. It really gets to me, or you know what I mean.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah, you got the music.
yeah,
Like what
it's a
poets?
completely other feeling.
Yeah.
And before I start really taking the decision of doing it like full time, before that it was more like it was some kind of therapy for me. When I was a model, it can be a lonely to be a model, travel around.
Mm-hmm.
So I used my music to let it out. But at that time, I also knew that it was not the time for me to let it out to you and to other people, because nobody wants to hear like, oh, I'm so sad, everything is, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So I
there's
knew that I was
certain
really
genres of music that are kind of
mm-hmm.
into that, and grunge, and some punk music is kind of focused
Yeah.
on like goth music and go that way. But yeah, if you're trying to do
Mm-hmm.
popular dance music, you probably got to refine your craft.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because a lot of people I talk to musicians all the time. I've had like 30 interviews in the last 2 years. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of musicians will say that, it's not that they, wanted to be a musician like they were, it just came out.
Yeah.
Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of musicians will say that it just comes out of them, whether or not it's going to be a hit. They just create music because it's inside of them and they just feel it.
Yeah.
And so it
Yeah.
sounds like you're in that category of people that when I talk to them, that's why they do it.
Yeah.
And so
That's true.
yeah, but that's what you see with a lot of musicians. It's just something that's like it comes out of them. It's just part of who they are, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's like breathing. I mean, it's some musicians they can't stop. because they just keep on doing it, whether or not they make any money with it or they do hits with it. They just continually work on their craft and they just do it. And I think that a lot of people, and it's probably a good way to be, because then you're not going to get disappointed. You're just doing it because it's part of who you are. And then if people finally get to where you are, then it's cool, because the world gets in sync to what you're doing. Find your fans. So I will get to a couple other questions, like who are your influences, like in terms of musicians? Who did you look up to? Who are your reference points, like in terms of your music?
At the moment, I'm very fascinated about Jessie J.
Okay.
And Lana Del Rey, I've been looking up for years, and also Lady Gaga. Somehow I liked her craziness.
She's very
it makes
creative.
Me feel that, okay, then I'm not that crazy.
Yeah, I can hear that.
It's okay.
I can hear those influences in your music. I can hear Lana Del Rey. I can hear Lady Gaga. I can hear, I can hear it. So not that it's just you can hear the reference points, so it's cool, because then you kind of see where a musician is coming from. And,
it's not that much, of course, the music, and so also Michael Jackson, like the energy, and also the other Danish artist Mo, that I'm really fascinated about, like also her personality. So it's not only the music, it's like
attitude. Yeah, because a lot of like musicians, cause where I come from, I'm a synthesizer player. So like Keith Emerson from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, the guys like Yes, Genesis, those type of people. But even somebody like Eddie Van Halen on like Jump. If you're a keyboardist, you look at what he did with that song, and how a guitar player approaches a synthesizer is actually very interesting. If you go back to like Pete Townsend in The Who, Pete Townsend approached synthesizers. He created like Who's Next and Barbara O'Reilly and all those songs in the 70s. And he was a guitar player. But how he approached the synthesizer was different than the way a keyboardist normally does. And so I've been very interested in music when you get somebody who's like a guitar player and then they go on a synthesizer. Or you get like a saxophone player like Coltrane. Joel Coltrane tried to mimic like guitars on his saxophone. And so when you have like musicians that kind of cross into other instruments or try to do things that are not normal or not the typical thing you would do, I've been very interested in that. So it's just in the world of like synthesizers, it allows you to do a lot of things that you normally wouldn't be able to do. Because if you were never a violin player, you can start to arrange string arrangements. You can start to think like a string player. You can think like a sax player. You can think like a bass player, and then you approach your keyboard in that way. So when you're using your studio, are you using like digital audio workstations like Pro Tools or FL Studio? Are you using tools like that, or are you using something else?
I use Logic Pro X, and then I have this Duet Approach, how you pronounce it. And then I have a very simple MIDI keyboard, and then my electronic piano, and that's actually it. And then I sometimes download some sounds.
Or plugins like sound.
Plug
in the
then
sound.
I play with them on the piano or drums. Play them. I like to do it myself, so I have all the feeling into also what the song is about. I actually made a new version of my debut single, My Child. Where I like was breaking it down. So I took it from the beginning. So that was really fun to.
So when you did that song, you did all those tracks you did yourself on your MIDI keyboard with all your equipment? That's cool. So like when you start a song, do you start with like the drum part, or do you start with like the keyboard?
Actually, the idea when it comes to me, not the one that I already made, My Child, but the the melody actually comes first in my mind,
Okay.
the singing part, and then I somehow already hear the finished song in my head.
Oh, cool. So
And
you
then,
guys, that's awesome.
and then I try
to get back to it.
Yeah, yeah. So mostly I start with the piano, and then I put drums afterwards.
But you're saying you actually kind of picture in your head the whole song from a vocal.
I can already hear it. Sometimes it ends up different, but I'll already have all the song in my head before I even start.
So does that mean do you take like your lyrics? Do you sometimes have your lyrics before you even sing a melody? Do you have like ideas that you write down in a notebook, and then, or do you just like you have that melody and then you write it down?
I always have the melody first, and then I just sing whatever comes to me, like what lyrics is on my mind. And then after I go and look through my material with my lyrics that are somehow, when you're somewhere, when you cannot sing out loud, or just have something you want to write down, I can take that and maybe bring it into the melody after, if what I'm thinking about is not what people want to hear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, a lot of times, like I originally was a poet, and I actually published some poetry 20 years ago. I'm kind of showing my age, but then I decided, I didn't know if I could sing, so it took me a long time to decide if I could sing. I had all this poetry, and so I eventually started taking all my published poetry and then working it into lyrics. And poetry doesn't always lend itself to songs. You can use parts of poems and you have to restructure them. So I end up having all this all these poems that I would end up restructuring. But because I'm a keyboard player, I usually would start with like the chord arrangements to start my songs off. But sometimes I actually had poems that I would try to figure out melodies that would go with the poems. And so it's a process that kind of changes from time to time. And ever since I've got a lot of new high-tech equipment, sometimes I'll start with beats. I'll start with like modular synthesizers like Moogs. They tend to give you, the weird thing about analog synthesizers is they give you a feeling, or they give you a sound that every day they can sound different. And so if you use your synthesizer as an inspiration, because these are machines that don't have presets.
I've been doing that too, also because there's so many crazy sounds out there. So if you just pick a sound and you press the keyboard, it can also inspire you to something.
The different machine, like if you have a Roland 808 drum machine can inspire you, like a Lynn drum machine, or you use a Prophet 5, or I just got this new thing from Teenage Engineering. They're a famous synth company. They have this synth called an OP1, and they came out with this brand new little mini synth called OPZ. And it basically is this little production studio that's the size of a TV remote. And it lets you build, it's a sequencer and a synthesizer. And I've been building tracks with this little tiny thing that you can just have in your bedroom. You can just have it on a plane. You put headphones on it. You can build whole songs. And it's very small. And it just allows you to just take all kinds of beats and then mix them together and chain them into songs and structure them and do all the mixing, and then bring it into your DAW later and refine it. And the tools like that are very useful for musicians. Any kind of new kind of instrument allows the musician to do things. And so it's cool that I like the fact that you're actually writing your own material. You're coming up with your own sounds. And so have you ever taken your work into a full production studio, like outside your home studio?
Of course, I've been doing that many times also years back, but this is just one project I'm working on. It's my own stuff. It's always nice to have the feeling and knowing you can do it yourself, but I'm also working with others. I just started a new collaboration with a Danish producer, and we're also doing the writing process together. His name is Per Lange, and so I'm working on that project, and then I'm also working back and forth with the DJ producer Freddie Mux in Los Angeles.
Okay.
We also made one song together. It was where he was sending the beat to me, and I was going to another studio to make the lyric, and I sent it back to him, and he mixed it. So there's many ways to do this. You can do it online. I also bought a beat online and send it out for mixing. But what I like the most is working face to face with another human being, because I'm very social and I'm not made for being at home. Yeah.
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 Well, I guess
My
being
goal
out
for
there.
the new year is to be on either on stage or in a recording studio with other people.
Yeah, that kind of goes to the question: have you played live and where, or are you planning on playing live shows or festivals in 2019?
Yeah, that is my plan for this year, to do more research where I can get my feet on stage, like
Mm-hmm.
in Denmark, but also outside the country. Until now, I have been doing some concerts for at music events
Mm-hmm.
here in Copenhagen, and also at some small pubs, and that's also great, just to
Yeah, get the
get
experience.
small money here and there. And but of course my plan is to um, do bigger shows and also have other people on the show, like some dancers and so on. I had that before.
Mm-hmm.
It just needs a lot more how you say,
Preparation.
yeah, preparation and planning. And as
Yeah.
you know, there's so much to do already for an independent artist.
Oh yeah.
But I want to focus more on that. So yeah.
Yeah. In 2018, I spent most of the year recording, and I'm a synthesizer player, so I was getting modes and getting like Euro racks, and I was just concentrating on getting gear and recording. And in 2017, I had played in New York City and Boston, in the U.S. and
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the kind of musician, I actually have road cases. I have physical hardware synths that have to be set up like a rock band.
Okay.
So the question I always ask today, because the way things are today, not every musician actually has a road case and has to set up their stuff and do sound checks. So when you do a show, are you using your computer with your MIDI keyboard, or are you running off a DJ, just giving a DJ a sound file and playing? How do you perform?
It depends. I always bring my computer and a backup plan if something's wrong with the computer. But else I give like my music. I send it before I
Mm-hmm.
go there to the DJ, and then I have this sing bags. So so where I just sing to the sing bags, or the,
Yeah,
how you say,
like a sequence.
yeah, the instruments playing, yeah.
Yeah, so
But
you're playing to
somehow,
like a sequencer on
yeah,
like an
yeah, 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 yeah,
MPX,
yeah,
or running off of like Ableton Live. Like if you
yeah,
have a computer, you can use Ableton Live, and you can actually mute your vocal track and then sing with your exact song.
yeah.
The
But I
ways to do.
always I
Yeah,
always sing live.
yeah,
So far I sing live, and then I bring a piano there if there's not already one. So
that's awesome.
I play with the track as well, so
Yeah,
it gets more live into it, like more
yeah,
living kind of style.
yeah,
So
definitely.
I sometimes is up front where I can move more, and then I go back to the piano. Sometimes if it's a more quiet place, I also have like a piano, just me and the piano playing. So it
Mhm.
also depends on the place where I'm going.
Yeah, if they have enough
Mhm.
room for you to be able to have an instrument.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's cool today because there's a lot of different options. There's
yeah,
one thing, I've been really into. I have my synthesizers, which I have these
yeah.
big racks of synthesizers. But nowadays they brought back the keytar. I don't know if you remember, keytars are like keyboards that are set up like guitars. They
Ah, yeah.
actually strap on.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, like Roland has some brand new ones. So it gives you an option where you could actually have it strapped on, jump on stage, and then walk off stage where you don't have to have all the overhead.
Yeah, I should actually get one of those. I think it would.
Yeah.
I would feel comfortable because you feel stuck somehow if you, as a person who have a lot of energy, just standing or sitting with the piano if you want to run around.
Yeah, well, I think the guitar is a really good thing. I was actually talking to some people. It just allows you to have that interface with the audience that a
Yeah.
guitar player has. And
Mm-hmm.
and the cool things like Roland just came out with like this thing called Roland Axe Edge, and Roland had like the premier guitar, back in the 80s and 90s. They had one of the best guitars ever, and they actually just brought it back, and it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And it has like 1,300 sounds built into it. It
Yeah.
can run sound card, so you could actually put a sound card into it through a USB and actually run your song. It has a vocoder, so you can
Yeah,
do.
it can actually do everything that a MIDI keyboard can do, right?
Yeah, and it can hook
Yeah.
and it could hook to your MIDI. So you could have a computer, run your MIDI files through it. You could play a piano on it. You could set it on a stand and play both hands, and then put it back on, and it can actually do got guitars. As a keyboard player, it's good to connect with the audience. And sometimes if I'm sitting behind my big stack of Rolands and Modes, nobody can really see me. And so the guitar, I've told a lot of electronic musicians that the guitar is a really good way to be like a guitar player and connect to your audience.
Yeah, that's true.
So I've always been a proponent of, like, if you're a musician and you can play, finding ways to actually bring instruments on stages is kind of what I'm a big proponent of. Though I understand today, with the DJs and stuff, you don't actually have to have an instrument, but I feel an audience, if you're a musician, audiences like to connect to you playing live.
Yeah.
And if you can do it and you actually have the chops to play, it's always good to show that you can play. And I think it gives
That's
you
true.
an edge as a musician if you show that you don't just sing, that you actually can play an instrument. I think that's really cool. So you talked about collaborating with like dancers. Would you imagine actually having like a drummer or other guitar players or bass players, like a full band, or you wouldn't do it like that, because you don't have to do it like that anymore.
I don't have to, but again, I'm really open-minded, and I go more with the flow, like I'm open-minded, what feels right. And you don't need a full band, but still there's something real about real drums. Like if you have drums and you have something like Mo is doing, actually.
Yeah.
There's like 3 instruments, and the sound is so huge because there's so much electronic stuff into it as well.
Yeah, there's definitely. Yeah, I'm a
yeah.
big proponent of like modes. I mean, I'm a big mode guy.
So I think like
Yeah, playing with real musicians. Like I love jazz music. I'm inspired by bands like Sun Ra, Miles Davis, Coltrane. And if you're into jazz, the whole experience is the fact that jazz musicians kind of improvise, and they play like classical musicians. They're very, very talented, have a lot of capability, and rock musicians can do that too. But somehow, in the last couple of years, some of the musicianship has kind of been lost on the fact that people can use the DAW, and that's great. But then people have like lost sight of why, like, a person like Jimi Hendrix was a big deal. Or why there's certain things about like a real musician that that your computer can't replace, like a Hendrix.
yeah, that's true.
So if you have talent, it's good to show that you can actually play. So that's me on my soapbox. I'm always, I talk to all kinds of people. I've talked to DJs. I understand electronic music. I can play it myself. I understand people using the platters and the Pioneer CDJs. I understand that's music, and you can be very creative with it. So I'm not putting it down, but there is still a place for live musicians.
That's true.
So what are your opinions on like the future of music and different types of music? Because I know you're into this like electronic music, but it seems like you could expand in other things. You're very open-minded.
I am, and I'm not into like only electronic, like when it's mixed, as I said, like and I also like rock and jazz, like you say, and blues.
Hmm.
I all this kind of different genres, and I feel the interesting part is when it comes together somehow.
Yeah.
Also, I feel a lot for the reggaeton
Oh,
style.
yeah. Yeah. Reggae
Yeah,
is
because there's this life into it, like this feeling.
yeah, definitely.
So yeah, so for sure, I like to mix genres. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's where you hear music going forward, and you get guys like Kendrick Lamar, you get people who mix genres, and they take jazz, they take rock,
Mm,
and they mix it up, and that's where you see
yeah,
a lot of music that's the best music coming out nowadays is
it's
pulling
true.
from multiple genres, and I think that's really good. I think you can take like sampling, you can take DJ techniques and mix
Yeah.
it with live music. And so
Mm,
if you have sampled, music combined with a real drummer,
yeah,
combined with like real singers on stage and guitar players, you can do very, expansive music. And that's kind of what I'm into is like taking sound and expanding it as much as you can.
yeah.
I think that's the future of music is not just being in one lane. It's kind of like opening all the lanes and
That's
doing
true.
whatever you feel. As a musician, you're going to feel something at a certain time. And so you might be feeling reggae, or you might be feeling ska, or you might feel punk,
Yeah.
and you're going to do what you feel. And then it's going to be whatever that moment is. But I think, being open to pulling in different reference points is cool.
That's true.
So what are your opinions on like streaming? Because I know streaming has allowed a lot of musicians to be on the scene that probably couldn't have been, wouldn't have got picked up by labels. But then there's other parts of like the streaming services, kind of like the new radio that allow a lot of musicians. Do you have any feelings about the way these streaming services work for musicians?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's there's not just one side to it. I think it's great that a lot new artists like myself, we can actually publish our own music like I have done on Spotify. This is really great, but still I actually found out lately that it don't give me much if I don't have what it takes to promote it, to really expand it. So what I found out is that I actually start just uploading my music to my website and share it on Instagram, where is where my audience is, where my fans is,
Mm-hmm.
and because I still believe that having a publishing deal is what I go for. If I keep showing that I can do everything myself, why should other people interact like being in my team?
Mm-hmm.
I found out that um, because it's able to do so much yourself, it's really easy to hide in your yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So we start believing we can do everything by ourselves, but still I think where it really takes off is where we corroborate with others, like I said, being in a studio. If you have somebody help, at least being more people with the publishing, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
there's a
because
reason why the record
there's so
industry.
many,
Yeah,
there's so much competition, and
yeah,
of course we all want to get out with our music and tell our story and so on, and there's so much competition and so many great talents out there.
yeah. It's hard
I
to.
just
I
think,
think yeah. I
yeah,
think the marketing is the part that like you're a
yeah,
musician, you're a creative person. The marketing is the
mm-hmm.
hard part. That's what the record companies actually traditionally are good at.
It
Um,
is,
and in the distribution and the promotion, it's like you
yeah,
can get on Spotify, but the key is you got to get on one of those playlists that has like
that's true.
that has like a
Like work
million
on
people
it,
or
like that,
100,000
yeah,
people or five hundred
mm-hmm.
thousand people. if you don't get on those playlists, it doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah.
So like you said, Instagram is where I've been very successful. Is how I have this show, is my
Yeah.
Instagram audience, is
Mm-hmm.
where I get all these interviews. And I've been able to get, I got Kendra Erica to come on, and she's a Billboard top 10 dance artist. And, and I suddenly went from like 500 people listening to almost 5,400. So it's been, as a musician, I love music, and I started to just become a podcaster as my way to kind of break in, and then I'm able to talk to musicians all over the world. And so by talking to different musicians, and in the last couple of years, I've actually been able to collaborate. With some of the musicians I talk to.
I understand totally what you mean now. I was thinking I thought you were only talking about the music streaming and so on.
No, but there's all kinds of things that you can do. And
but that's awesome. It really is. Like all my collaborations and like you contacted me on Instagram, so it's great.
Yeah, I think Instagram is the best social network for musicians.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I love YouTube and I love Facebook, but there are so many musicians on Instagram. And
that's true.
And Instagram is where there's a lot of, really awesome new artists. And they've, and what's cool is the community is very, it's kind of vital. It's actually very vibrant, and there's a lot of stuff going on. I've talked to multiple genres like punk, DJs, rock bands, synthwave, multiple genres, from pop stars to like punk stars, and rappers. And it's very wide open. It's not like American radio, which is very segmented. There's so many different genres on Instagram. It isn't like a channel where it's only rock and roll, it's only country. It's like everybody's there. I mean, I interviewed a country western star from Nashville like 2 weeks ago, and then I interviewed some punk rockers from London, and then I interviewed a band from Italy. So these were all Instagram artists. So Instagram really is like the new place to be as an indie musician, and that's why I try to do this show, because it helps to promote these indie artists that I find on Instagram. And what's cool is our podcast, we get published on Spotify, we get published on Apple, we actually published on 10 different platforms. And so now we're actually out there. We have corporate sponsors that we just started getting, and we're starting to make a name for ourselves. So when this podcast goes out later tonight, it's going to hit a lot of different platforms. We've got about 1,500 listeners per month, about 5,000 people on board right now listening. So we're hoping to hit 10,000 mid-year this year. So we're building our audience, and it's helping. I'm a musician myself, so I'm trying to talk to other people, but also build my own rep. And so that's what I kind of found this niche where I can, as a musician, talk to people, because I'm a musician, talk to other musicians.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love the concept, really. Yeah.
And so, what we like to do is, if you get close to your new album coming out, or you have new releases, we like to talk to people as they do additional work. So if you start going on tour and you want to promote your tour, you can come back on the show. If you've got a brand new record that you want to talk about and premiere, you can come on the show and talk about it. So we like to stay in touch with the people we talk to. We've had a lot of guests come on 2-3 times to talk about their projects in the last 2 years. So we hope that if you're into it, you would do that. And tell any other artists that that need promotion that we do this for free, and we're out here available to these artists. So if you know artists in your area that you're working with, and they want to go on a podcast and they feel comfortable, and not everybody feels comfortable talking.
What did you say? Not everybody.
Not every musician actually feels free enough to actually.
No, that's true. That's
interview.
true.
I've actually run into some folks that they just don't want to do it. They're good at being a musician, but they're not good at actually talking about their work.
But it's good to practice it,
Yeah, which gives us a
So
place.
even you
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable about it, I will say to everybody out there, like, get in the game.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like your promotion, it's like maybe
Yeah,
that you don't want to do it, but it's part of promoting your
it
brand.
is.
To be able to talk about your music and
Yeah,
yeah, and
it's
really,
really important.
I think it's a good promotional tool. You can send these links out. I'll send you the links, and you can
Yeah,
put them on your website. We have embed
yeah.
links, and we just
Mm-hmm.
provide them. And we just like to get people to know about musicians that they don't know about. So we're going to put the links to your
Yeah.
Spotify and your webpage,
Mm-hmm.
so people will be able to hear your music. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like we said, this will go out later tonight. And so, is there anything you'd like to tell your fans that maybe they don't know that you would have a chance to tell them?
I want to say I love you if you don't know it. And I'm looking forward to meeting you on stage really soon. And yeah, I'm just really excited for this new year. And what I want to say to my fans is that whatever you want, whatever you believe in, just go for it.
Well, that's a good sentiment. I agree with that. That's
Yeah,
all.
just don't look back. And if you don't know the way, just try to go in one direction. If it don't feels great, you just go the other way. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
those are
that
good.
was a little advice for my fans, and what most of my songs is about, my new songs as well.
Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
we have Jen Eagle, and we were talking to her. She's
Mm-hmm.
a Danish electro pop singer. We're going to put all her links up on the
Okay.
podcast, and we enjoyed talking to you tonight. And yeah, have a great new year. And hopefully, we're planning on doing a lot of shows this year. So you never know. We're trying to get to Europe. They come to the States. You never know if we'll be on the same stage ever. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool. We love talking to musicians from around the world. So thank you for being on the show, and we'll get this out to you tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay, have a
It
great.
was nice to talk to you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
No problem. Talk to you later.
Yeah. Hi.
This is Fam Electric Ghost, and our supporter, CIN Pals, is having a promotional contest where you can win $500. You just have to call them at 786-562-7601. If you call them at 786-562-7601. You can also email CIN Pals at cinpalsinfo@gmail.com. cinpalsinfo@gmail.com. Their website is www.cinpals.com. Again, CIN Pals, a new type of social network, is having a promotional contest, and you can win $500. Check out CIN Pals at www.cinpals.com or call them at 786-562-7601. That's 786-562-7601. Email again is cinpalsinfo@gmail.com. cinpalsinfo@gmail.com. Thank you.